Deep in the heart of a treacherous cave system, one man's passion for exploration turned into a fight for survival. Eric Establie, a skilled French cave diver, risked everything to discover the secrets hidden within the dark, twisting tunnels. But what started as an exciting adventure quickly turned into a nightmare as Eric found himself trapped and alone, fighting for every breath. Join us as we delve into the harrowing story of Eric Establie and the incredible efforts of the divers who risked their own lives to bring him home. Eric Establie was born in France in 1966 and grew up in a family of outdoor enthusiasts. He developed a love for exploration and adventure from a young age, and his passion led him to pursue a career as a professional caver and cave diver. He was married and had 2 children, but his work took him to remote corners of the world, away from his family. Establie had extensive experience as a cave diver and was considered one of the best in his field. He had completed numerous cave diving expeditions around the world, including in Mexico, Brazil, and Australia. His expertise and skill as a cave diver allowed him to navigate the most complex and challenging cave systems, often venturing to depths that few had ever reached before. As a volunteer diver, Eric Establie had been registered with the French Spilio Relief for 4 years. He participated in numerous rescue operations, including the retrieval of an experienced diver's lifeless body at a depth of 1,100 meters below sea level and 50 meters deep inside a wrestle cave in the Lot in March 2009. Described as possessing extraordinary composure and an unwavering mind, Eric was a renowned cave diver, considered one of the best in the world at the age of 45. He was always ready to assist with complex rescue operations, as emphasized by Eric Zipper, who oversaw the caving rescue operations on site prior to his tragic passing. Eric had explored the Mescla Caves in the Var Gorge at a depth of 139 meters and discovered the source of the platin in the Ardèche Gorge. In addition to his cave diving expertise, he ran a maritime and submarine work company in Cannes and shared his passion for cave diving with his 14-year-old son. Throughout his career, Establie had faced many challenges and obstacles in his pursuit of exploration. He had narrowly escaped death on several occasions and had to deal with the dangers of cave diving, such as underwater currents, poor visibility, and lack of oxygen. Despite these challenges, he remained committed to his passion and continued to push the boundaries of cave diving. In June 2010, Establie embarked on a new challenge to explore the Dragonia Go Cave in southern France. The Dragonia Go Cave is known for its beautiful underwater landscapes, but it is also notorious for its narrow passageways and strong currents, making it a challenging and dangerous location for even the most skilled divers. This cave system was known for its deep and treacherous underwater tunnels, which had never been fully explored. Establie hoped to be the first person to discover the secrets of this mysterious cave and to document his findings for the scientific community. Eric Establie's passion for cave diving was driven by his desire to explore unseen parts of the underwater world. He was a skilled and experienced cave diver who had mapped out many caves in his lifetime, but the one that he was most determined to explore was the Dragonian Go Cave in France. He had studied this cave many times, and on each trip he had mapped out another piece of it. It was clear that this cave made him happy, and he was always thinking about it. Eric was a friendly and cheerful person who was loved by everyone in the cave diving community. He would often have other divers join him on his excursions, and they would always learn from his extensive experience. On Sunday, October 3rd, 2010, Eric entered the Dragonian Go Cave with the intention of exploring parts of the cave that had not been mapped out yet. He brought with him all the necessary equipment, including 2 rebreathers, 2 scooters, 5 air tanks, and 1,476 feet of dive line. He was planning on diving for 6 hours at a depth of about 285 feet. As he made his way deeper into the cave, he was excited, nervous, and focused. The dive was going according to plan, and he had made it about 1,200 feet into the cave before he hit one of the muddy walls, causing silt to kick up all around him. Eric knew that he needed to wait for the silt to dissipate before continuing, and he did so. However, when he continued down the cave, he wasn't really able to see past 12 inches, even with his very bright headlamp. He had to focus all his energy on going down the correct passages and not getting his equipment snagged. He was very deep into the cave with very little visibility, all alone in the pitch black. Finally, he continued down a tight passage and came out on the other side, only to be met with a rockfall in the cave. He needed to move immediately, but the silt kicked up again, instantly blinding him and causing a blackout. Eric knew that he had to get out of the situation or he would be trapped, run out of air, or die. He tried to find another way out, but every spot he came across was obstructed. He had only a limited amount of air and no way to get out of the cave. He decided to ditch some of the gear to be more agile in the tight passages. He needed to find an airspace where he would not suffocate from lack of oxygen once his air tanks were empty. He also knew that if rescuers were to enter the cave, they would see that he left his gear consciously and that he might still be alive after the rockfall. Eric was now trapped on the wrong side of the rockfall, which was several meters thick. This was his worst nightmare because he did not show up outside the cave when he was supposed to check in. The moments leading up to his disappearance were filled with challenges that he had to overcome, but ultimately he was able to do so. Eric's love for cave diving led him to explore the depth of the Dragonian Go Cave, but it was also what led to his disappearance. The search for Eric involved a massive effort from hundreds of people across various agencies. The French Spilo Relief, the Gendarmeries High Mountain Police Unit, the firefighters and the Red Cross were among the teams involved. The search was launched as soon as Eric was reported missing, and it quickly grew into a complex operation. The searchers worked around the clock for days, hoping to find Eric alive. The search team faced a multitude of challenges in their efforts to locate Eric. The Resso Cave is known for its narrow passages, deep waters and intricate cave system. The passages are so tight that in some cases, divers can barely fit through, let alone carry equipment. The cave is also extremely deep, with some areas reaching depth of over 1,000 meters. The searchers had to navigate through these obstacles while trying to locate Eric and bring him back to the surface. Despite the challenges, the search team did not give up. They worked tirelessly, using specialized equipment such as sonar and underwater cameras to try and locate Eric. Divers explored the cave's passages and looked for any sign of him. Rescuers also scoured the surrounding area, including the river that runs through the cave. The search team continued their effort for over a week, determined to find Eric. By October 23, 2010, 355 volunteer cavers had taken turns in a natural chimney 150 meters long in order to join the body of Eric Establie, a confirmed diver speleologist who had disappeared during an exploration in the Dragonia de Go. The search for Eric was a massive undertaking that required a unique set of skills and expertise, which is where British divers Eric Establie and John Volanthen came in. Stanton and John Volanthen of the South and Mid-Wales Cave Rescue Team (SMWCRT) were specially requested by the French authorities to help locate Eric. These two volunteer British cave divers are believed to be the first to locate 12 Thai boys and their coach after 9 days of searches regarding one of the most publicized cave rescues in history. They have worked together on major global search and rescue operations, including missions in Mexico, France, and Spain. Stanton is a British civilian cave diver specializing in rescues through the Cave Rescue Organization and the British Rescue Council. They have both been called one of the world's most accomplished divers in the face of British cave diving and are also considered the best cave divers in Europe. Rick Stanton, in his mid-50s, is a firefighter who hails from Coventry and has more than 35 years of experience in caving. He has expertise in dry caving and technical caving, which made him an ideal candidate for the search for Eric. In 2013, he described his numerous search and rescue missions as a hobby, which speaks of his dedication and passion for helping others in need. John Volanthen is a computer engineer who runs marathons in his spare time and lives in Bristol. He has technical skills, including pushing the limits of rebreather technology thought to be used by cavers as they navigate that 30-mile-long Toppling Big network in northern Thailand. The search for Eric Establie was personal for Stanton and John Volanthen because they knew Eric. They had met him a few years earlier in France, and Eric had once helped John gain access to another cave. When they were asked if they would fly the cave to attempt a rescue, they did not hesitate. After packing for their trip inside the cave with first aid and food, they expected the journey to take around 5 to 7 hours. The second team of Swiss divers were ready to go if required. 2 British divers commenced their exploration at around 3 p.m. and aimed to reach the end of the known site, approximately 3,000 feet away. As they progressed through the water, they encountered thick sediments, making it difficult to see the lights on their helmets after 2,427 feet. They discovered that an underwater avalanche had disturbed the mold on the cave floor, causing the sediments to thicken. Rick and John discovered a small hole in the rock fall, but their bulky equipment prevented them from passing through. They were 2,559 feet from the cave entrance, but had to turn back due to their diminishing air supply. This was concerning, as Eric had not been found during the first rescue attempt. Now that they were aware of the situation inside the cave, a new rescue plan and resupply had to be developed before making another attempt. The British divers confirmed that it was unlikely they could clear the rock fall in the cave. In the meantime, a civil engineering crew with heavy equipment was digging an impossible vertical shaft on Wednesday morning to gain access to the upstream section of the cave. Simultaneously, a team of cavers was exploring a nearby cave that might potentially connect to the formidable Dragonia cave system. If this connection was successful, it could serve as an exit for Eric to escape from the cave. Once the silt in the cave cleared up, the Swiss diving team made another attempt to rescue Eric. They encountered no issues while reaching the rockfall, but despite hours of searching for a passage through, they were forced to retreat for resupply. Meanwhile, a large backhole opened a trench that granted access to a fissure where cavers are currently attempting to connect to the Dragonia cave system. However, the aperture was obstructed by rocks and this required removal. The diggers managed to excavate about 50 feet down, but there is still another 210 feet to reach the level of the cave passage. They identified the exact spot where Eric is likely to be if he has found an air pocket. It is hoped that this fissure will ultimately connect to the air-filled passage where Eric might be waiting. Rick and John teamed up with expert divers Pedro Balodi and Luigi Casati for their second attempt to rescue Eric. They came up with a new strategy that involved using slimmer diving equipment that could fit through a narrow gap in the rockfall. Returning to the spot where Eric's emergency scooter was located, they searched for any possible way up and over the obstruction. Upon closer examination, they discovered that Eric had attempted to crawl through the obstruction and had left a gap that they could use. With this new information, they decided to return to the cave entrance and resupply before attempting a third rescue mission. Rick and John made their way into the cave once more, this time with a sense of urgency. They knew that time was running out for Eric and they had to navigate the rockfall to reach him. Using a gap they found near the top of the obstruction in the cave ceiling, they pushed through. This was a dangerous move, as hitting the ceiling could cause them to black out, but they managed to get through unscathed. However, Eric was nowhere to be found on the other side. Undeterred, they continued their search, venturing 600 feet deeper into the uncharted part of the cave. It was a risky move, but they were determined to find Eric. Rick and John, both highly experienced and mentally resilient, pressed on with their search for Eric deep inside the cave, holding on to the hope that their friend was waiting to be rescued in an air pocket. They were driven by their determination to bring Eric back to safety. As they swam through a long passage with clear visibility, they suddenly spotted Eric 15 feet below them. It was a shocking discovery, as Eric had somehow managed to reach such a depth in the cave. It was evident that he had been desperately trying to find an air pocket, but had sadly run out of air before he could do so. After 10 days of searching, they finally located Eric deep within the cave and set about the arduous task of preparing his body to bring it back to the cave entrance. Rick and John faced a difficult situation as they tried to retrieve Eric's body from the narrow gap and rockfall in the cave. Despite their efforts, they were unable to get the body through without risking getting stuck themselves. Ultimately, they had to leave Eric's body behind, but they were able to retrieve his diving computer, which was important for the investigation. However, their own safety was still at risk, as they had to focus on making it back to the cave entrance. The dive had used up a lot of their air, so it was a close call for them to make it out safely. Fortunately, they were able to navigate their way back through the cave without any complications and exit safely. After obtaining the dive computer from Rick and John, the French authorities analyzed it to determine how Eric's dive had progressed and where he had ultimately died. The data revealed that he had drowned on the first day. The speleologist launched an appeal for donations, which raised 80,000 euros to continue the search. However, the emergency services have now announced that their technical and human resources have reached their limits. They expressed their condolences to Eric's family, including his wife, Evelyn, and his son, Athol. Despite numerous attempts over the course of several weeks, the rescue team was unable to extract his body from the cave, as the unstable underground river prevented them from doing so. As a result, the French Speleology Federation ultimately called off the search operations on the 8th of January 2011.